Magic Brownies. Book 2 of the Cozy Mystery Series, Camping Girl. Written by Josephine Beintema. Narrated by Josephine Beintema. Chapter 6. Magic Brownies. "Just who are you?" frowned Fergie, looking like she had spotted a particularly ugly toad.
"Bart Baker, from the Tasty Treats Bakery," supplied Whitcomb. "Bart, I told you we would be heading to your bakery directly after the tour of the farmer's market." "There is nothing and no one here at the market worth Fergie's time," declared Bart. He glared at me, sweating and puffing from the exertion of fighting through the crowd. "You cheated on the taste testing contest. I know it. I should have your booth."
"I did not cheat. I don't have to lower myself to that degree, unlike you," I retorted with some steam. "Ooh, I sense a story behind this." Fergie leaned forward in excitement. "What happened?"
"I played perfectly fair," sniffed Bart. "It's not my fault you aren't a competent baker."
"Calling in a fake claim to the health department is playing fair?" I raised an eyebrow in disbelief.
"You have an unlicensed kitchen," he accused through gritted teeth,
shaking a finger in my face. "It is licensed," I said coldly. I neglected to mention we had just managed to get the license by the skin of our teeth. "The drama!" gasped Fergie with delight. "I want both of you on my show, pitted against each other. It will draw in viewers. You can tell everyone your stories and gain stardom." I would rather just let the baking speak for itself. I grabbed a random package of baked treats, shoving them at Mayor Whitcomb. "Why don't you try the brownies as well? They will be a foil for the lemon snaps."
"Bribing them?"
growled Bart as he breathed heavily. He snatched a second package of brownies off my table.
"You should be ashamed of yourself."
"I'm not ashamed of myself," I said calmly. Looking Bart in the eye, I said in as firm a voice as I could manage, cognizant of the cameras which were recording every second of our spat. "I'm ashamed of your behavior. Coming here, throwing accusations around, being rude, and just generally not a nice person. The mayor has said Fergie intends to stop by your bakery. You should be there, preparing for her arrival. I would appreciate it if you would please leave." There was some scattered applause in the crowd. Growling, a sweaty Bart shook the package of brownies at me.
"You haven't heard the last of this. The cookbook is going to be mine."
He spun on his heel, stiffly marching back through the crowd and elbowing any unfortunate individual who got in his way. "Well, that was some excitement," Fergie told the cameras. "Seriously, I need to put the two of you on a show together." "I would rather not," I said dryly. "The less time I spend around Bart Baker, the better." "I'll do it," volunteered Molly. Fergie laughed. She and her entourage continued on, looking at booths and remarking on life in a small town. Molly and I watched until she was out of sight. Then we were mobbed by people paying for treats while gossiping about what they had just seen. Just from my confrontation with Bart, I received several standing orders from people who weren't particularly enamored with the baker.
"Ivy, we need to talk."
The male voice sent a shiver up my spine. "Now." I winced slightly. From my previous encounters with Detective Armand, I knew this was his no-nonsense voice, which made people feel like they had done something wrong, even if they hadn't. Turning around, I saw a stern detective staring down at me. "Can I help you?" I asked as I wondered what had happened to the nicer version of Armand who had bought treats from me this morning. "You can," replied Armand. Taking me by the arm, he propelled me out of the booth. "Where are we going?" I wondered uncertainly. "I need to be helping Molly."
"You need to explain your actions," responded a terse Armand as we jostled through the crowded area.
Arriving where the police and firefighters were running games for the carnival, Armand stopped.
"What were you thinking?"
"I don't understand," I protested, annoyed by his manhandling and accusatory tone. "What are you talking about?"
"The brownies!" he hissed at me in a loud whisper.
Now I was confused.
"Hey, Luca!"
shouted a blonde, boyish-looking cop as he tried to throw beanbags into the holes to gain points at one of the games.
"Do you think this game is too hard? I've been trying, and I think the game is super hard. It's not fair to expect little kids to do okay at a game like this when I can't even score any points. That is just mean. Maybe we should give out refunds, or let the kids play free." He tossed a bag right over the board. Putting his hands up in the air, he shrugged in amazement. "See what I mean? It's so difficult." "Are these microwavable?" asked the cop beside him, holding up the beanbags. "I had a sore knee once and used a heated beanbag. Or if we microwave the beans, will they be cooked?" "Is he high?" I hesitantly questioned the men's odd behavior. Armand grabbed my shoulders, turning me to face him. He leaned forward, speaking with a sense of urgency. "Every single person I gave your brownies to is high. Ivy, we have drug tests that we are supposed to pass. These are police officers and firefighters here. We are all on call and now impaired." "That's not good," I ventured, a little shocked by the revelation, but wondering what my brownies had to do with it. "No, it is not good," Armand told me before he was distracted by something behind me. "He has a really red shirt, like ultra bright red." "What?" I tried to look, but didn't see anything in particular. A sudden suspicion came over me, and I looked at him carefully. "Are you high?" "You make me want to tear my hair out," muttered Armand before abruptly letting go of me. "You are a complete disaster, Ivy Thurman. What were you thinking? Serving emergency service personnel brownies laced with marijuana." "Whoa! Stop it right there!" I stuck a finger under his arrogant nose. "I did not make marijuana brownies. The brownies are from my grandmother's recipe. They are not magic brownies." "Ivy, I remember exactly what it was like to be high in college from smoking weed," admitted Armand. "The only thing I ate this morning since breakfast was one of your brownies." "Are you certain?" I asked as a sinking feeling came over me. Who knew how many other people had bought the brownies? I couldn't remember who had all purchased the packages of them. "Very certain," an emphatic Armand told me. He looked over at one of the firefighters who was laughing uproariously over something someone had said. "Dude, it is not that funny. Well, it would be if I wasn't a detective. If the chief finds out, we are all suspended. Can you imagine the papers? Half the police force suspended for eating magic brownies. This could make national news." "It can't be my brownies," I insisted. Grabbing Armand by the arm, it was my turn to push my way through the crowd, pulling him along behind me. "Molly! Molly!" "What's up?" Molly turned from giving change to a customer. She smiled and her eyes lit up as she caught sight of Armand with me. "Hello, lemon custard, sweet and sour." "What?" the confused Armand said, staring down at her like she was speaking a different language, which she kind of was. "Molly," I admonished before looking around to see if anyone would overhear what I had to say next. Fortunately, it looked like there was a lull in the crowd, and we had no customers at the moment. "Did you put marijuana in the brownies of my grandmother's recipe?" "No," answered Molly. I sighed in relief before turning to Armand. "See?" "I used the cannabis butter your grandmother listed in the recipe," an innocent Molly told us. "You said absolutely no substitutions, and I found a jar of the stuff hiding in the back of the fridge in your camper." I stared at her in shock. "You let me sell magic brownies?" "I did kind of say I didn't think it was a good idea to sell them to Mr. Detective here, but you did it anyways," shrugged Molly. "I don't know what kind of town this is. Maybe this is the normal here." "You did not say that," I squeaked. "Did I not hint someone else had ordered the brownies?" Huffed Molly as she rolled her eyes. "I was giving you an out, but you blissfully sold them to policemen here anyways." "Because I didn't know you made magic brownies," I practically yelled at her. Armand shushed me. "Oh my word," breathed Molly, cluing in. "Is he high?" "You don't need to say it quite so loudly," muttered Armand. Molly dissolved into giggles. "Great," I murmured. "Just great. How are we going to babysit half the police force and firefighters? Who else got the brownies?" Only the mayor and Fergie's whole entourage," crowed Molly as she laughed hysterically. "Herb bought a batch after making certain I followed your Gema's directions to a T." "One day in, and our catering business is ruined," I moaned, covering my face with my hands. I peeked out at Armand, dreading the possible answer to the question I was about to ask. "Is cannabis legal? Are the edibles legal here?" There have to be permits. He frowned at us both. Is anything else in your booth contaminated? Molly? I looked at my friend pointedly. Just the brownies, confirmed a mirthful Molly. That's it. Thank goodness, I sighed in relief. Armand picked up a package of peanut butter brittle, ripping it open, breaking off a chunk before popping it into his mouth. Are you going to pay for that? A pert Molly asked. We drugged him, I chided her. If he has the munchies, he is welcome to eat. This is good, mentioned Armand as he crunched through the brittle. If there are any more brownies, they need to be thrown out, I advised. I looked at Armand, who seemed to have relaxed a little. What are we going to do about the other high people? Nothing, suggested Molly. It will wear off after a couple of hours. A couple of hours? I exclaimed. Usually it wears off in half an hour, frowned Armand, from what I remember. It is if you smoke it, explained a patient Molly. Edibles are a slightly different thing. The high takes longer to come on, but when it does, it can be more extreme and last longer. What are we going to do? I moaned. Trick the cops out of their keys and let them play carnival games with the kids, shrugged an unconcerned Molly. By the time the farmer's market is over, they'll be sober and Armand can return the keys. It is not a plan. My voice was tinged with disapproval. What happens if they got a call for a fire or something? I need to tell the chief, said Armand as he crunched through the last of the brittle. He nodded decisively. We will just have to take whatever punishment he gives us. Wait! Molly held out a hand, putting brakes on the idea. Could Ivy and I go to jail for this? I am not going to jail, I huffed. I didn't bake these. You sold them, Molly pointed out. I bought them, noted Armand. We are all screwed. We don't need to tell the police chief, wheedled Molly as she handed Armand a piece of cheesecake and a fork. Not if we call in a bunch of Ivy's senior citizens to babysit the boys in blue. No one needs to know. Again, we can't babysit people if they need to go on an active crime scene, I remarked. This is really tasty cake, mentioned Armand. You two are excellent bakers. Thank you, dimpled Molly as she fluttered her eyelashes. Stop it, I hissed at her. You are not flirting your way out of this situation. Molly pouted. Give me your phone, I demanded of Armand. He easily complied, unlocking the screen with my prompting. Where is the chief of police's phone number? We don't exactly call him, explained Armand around a mouthful of cake. He's not in my contacts. Okay, then who do I call? I asked. Molly, go and fetch those keys from all the other officers and firefighters. Who will watch the booth? Questioned Molly. Just go, I told her. I knew she could flirt the keys right out of the men's inebriated pockets. Hopefully no female police or firefighters met up with my friend. Molly didn't have as good a luck with the fairer sex. She tended to be a bit abrasive around women. Grumbling, she took off and I pulled Armand into our booth. Who should I call? I asked him again. Armand finished off the cake. Try dispatch. They will know what to do. Do you have a garbage? Here. I grabbed his garbage and threw it in the trash. Pushing the phone at him, I tapped the screen. Where is dispatch? There. Armand leaned over, touching the screen to the appropriate number, his fingers brushing over mine. Moving a little away from him to get some space, I spent the next while explaining to the policewoman on the phone the mishap of accidentally drugging Oaks Crossing's finest with magic brownies which weren't meant for resale. First, the dispatcher laughed at me. Then, once she realized I was serious, she got her supervisor, who laughed at me some more. Finally, they assured me the sober portion of the police force would come to investigate the matter. I cringed a little. They won't charge me with anything, will they? I questioned Armand. I honestly have no idea. Armand eyed the last of the fudge. There were only 2 packages left. Go ahead, I gestured to the treat. Thanks, he replied before opening the package. Armand paused as he slowly chewed the fudge. I don't know if it's the pot or your baking, but this is the best fudge. I swear I can taste the colors. You're welcome. I grabbed the last package, opening it for myself. I deserved the sweet, buttery, chocolatey goodness, I decided. The last few days had been difficult. If this had happened at any other police department, and I heard about the incident, I would be laughing, mentioned Armand. It is kind of funny, when you think about it. I gave Armand a sideways glance. Somehow, I hadn't pictured the grim detective having a sense of humor. It didn't fit with the history I knew about him from our previous encounters. Armand shrugged. If I weren't worried about what the police chief is going to do about this whole situation, it would be funny. The crowd was thinning out at the farmer's market as we edged closer to the end of the day. It was a good thing because we had nearly sold out of baked goods. As I arranged the last couple of packages for display, Molly returned. She was followed by an unamused, middle-aged policeman who looked particularly important. Armand quickly swallowed the last of his fudge and straightened. "Sir?" "My homicide detective, my forensic team, and 3 rookies, all impaired," glowered the chief. "Plus some members of the fire department and one of our paramedics. Do you know what will happen if this gets into the press? It will go national, and the Oaks Crossing Emergency Services will be the laughingstock of the country." "Yes, sir," quietly agreed a subdued Armand. "It is the only reason no one will be suspended for this." The chief fixed his unyielding gaze on me. "I hear you and the blue-haired wonder are responsible for drugging my men."
"Ivy didn't know," confessed Molly. "It was all my fault. The brownies weren't meant to be sold to unsuspecting customers." "I sold the brownies," I admitted. "It is true I didn't know what was in them. I'm deeply sorry."
"Selling cannabis edibles without a license carries a heavy fine," warned the chief.
"Yes, sir." I bit my lip. We would probably lose the kitchen license I had just acquired. None of this was good. My stomach bottomed out in anxiety.
"Sir, she didn't know," began Armand before he was cut off by the chief. "I will talk to you in a minute," growled the chief as he glared at Armand. "Yes, sir," came Armand's quietly chastened reply.
The police chief let out a heavy sigh.
"What I don't need is this getting into the press. If I charge you with anything, it would be seen in the crime scene section in the newspaper, and I would have to answer questions from the public about this fiasco. Questions I don't want to answer."
"Does it mean that you're not charging us?" questioned a hopeful Molly.
"If this happens again, you can be certain I will come down doubly hard on you," warned the chief. "No more sales of edibles without a permit. No unlawful activity at all."
"Yes, sir, absolutely," I nodded readily, happy to agree to whatever he wanted.
"Good," stated the chief with a small measure of grim satisfaction. "Detective, you can fill me in on the details of exactly how this happened while we walk to the car."
"Yes, sir," replied a gloomy Armand. After they were both gone, I sat down abruptly on a stool. That was so bad. It could have been so much worse. "It was kind of funny," remarked Molly, opening a package of triple chocolate chip cookies. She handed me 2 and took the others for herself. "It's going to be a great story to tell people." "No," I shook my head and a finger at her. "No telling anyone about this. You heard the police chief. He doesn't want anyone to know. It means we don't say a word about it, so he doesn't decide to press charges after all." "Fine," huffed Molly as she chewed a cookie. "If you think about it, we're giving up our bragging rights. How many other people can say they got the cops high?" "Half the cops, and by accident," I clarified. "Still, it's worth bragging about," remarked Molly, finishing off a cookie. "Not if you only get to brag from the inside of a jail cell," I reprimanded, sinking my teeth into a buttery, sweet chocolatey goodness. Soft and moist, these cookies were perfect. Molly grimaced. "You are such a spoil sport." "I'm practical," I mentioned dryly. The day was winding down. Vendors began packing up their booths, so we did too. As we were putting the last items away, Ava approached. "Oh, wow, what a busy day," she smiled at us. "I hope you guys did well. I was meaning to come over earlier, but I was so busy with all the foot traffic. I've never had so many sales in one sitting." "We were pretty busy," I admitted, not expanding on what had happened with the brownies. "I think we maybe have a dozen packages of baked goods left." "Great!" Ava pulled out some money. "I was hoping to pick up something to tide me over until supper." I showed her what was left, and she picked out some strawberry rhubarb tarts. Thelma came bustling to our booth, eyes wide. "Did you hear what happened?" "No," I questioned cautiously, hoping word hadn't gotten out about the magic brownie mishap. "What happened?" An interested Molly leaned in, encouraging Thelma.